All right, greetings, my friend. Welcome to the Red Delta Project YouTube channel. I'm Matt Schifferly, and today is an update on my month-long project that I started about 30 days ago, where I endeavored to get more proficient, finally, at two of the exercises that have long vexed me, specifically any type of inverted handstand work and bridge work. The reason why I started this challenge of doing one set every day is because I never felt like I got a lot out of these exercises, like it was making much headway. So I thought, if I do it a little bit every day, kind of a grease the groove method, what would happen? And here are the results. Probably the biggest change that's happened over the past month is what I expected, which was I got a lot more used to and comfortable with the exercises. And I know in our fitness culture, there's a lot of stuff out there saying like, oh, you don't want to get used to the exercise. You don't want your body to get used to it and all this sorts of ideas. But in fact, that's exactly what you do want with your training, because you won't be able to make much progress until you get much more comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing. So I've noticed that I'm getting much more comfortable with my joints when I was doing it. When I started my bridges, especially for that first week, I was noticing a little bit of aches and pains, particularly in my right knee. And that was telling me, oh, something is off on my technique. That was probably laying dormant. Never really noticed it before. But because the increase of the frequency was exposing that, I noticed, oh, I got to get my feet a little bit more pointed forward. Did that, and it corrected the issue right away. I also noticed that I was getting a little bit of an ache and pain in my lower back from coming down off of my handstands. So I was coming away from the wall a little bit too much, not engaging my upper back enough, not getting enough tricep activation in the bottom of the pressing whenever I was doing push-ups as well. So all these things, they're building up, and now I'm getting more range of motion and feeling stronger and much more comfortable with the exercises, which alone has made this whole thing entirely worth it. I've also noticed that all of this improvement and progress seems to be coming a little bit more in the past 10 days or so. When I started the whole project, I got sick, so that first week was kind of a bit of a wash, and I was really struggling with it. And then I had a couple of bouts of chronic anxiety that was hitting me again, so those workouts really weren't very good as well. So the lesson there is that even though there were certainly times when I felt like I'm not really up for this, I don't feel like it's working, I don't feel like it's doing anything, I stayed on it to some degree, and then it still made some sort of progress, even though there were times it certainly felt like I wasn't moving the needle very much. I was also using, of course, my adaptive training methods that I have my new little ebook for. The link is down below. So I wasn't sticking to any sort of routine or strict plan or anything like that. The only thing was I had to do some sort of handstand-y, push-up-y maybe, or some sort of extension bridgey type thing on a daily basis. So sometimes I was doing just simple hip bridges. Sometimes it was just simply getting up into a handstand and just kind of trying to stabilize and balance a little bit. Sometimes it was even just an isometric. I wasn't even doing the actual exercise. I was just using my iso trainer for deadlifts or something like that if I really wasn't feeling like the exercise. So I was very flexible in my approaches, and that certainly was more for the benefit, which I certainly anticipated. Another great thing that came about, which I was not surprised to learn, but very happy to be validated with, is a lot of people are like, well, what are you doing for your warm-up? What are you doing to prepare? The answer was nothing. And the reason for that was because I, for the most part, unless I was really tired or sometimes hungover, I could just pop right into the handstand and start banging out the push-ups, no problem. I would set the tension beforehand, maybe just kind of circle the joints a little bit, but I didn't really need any sort of preparatory work because I was doing the exercises on a more frequent basis. And as I've long said, we usually don't need these long, tedious warm-ups and preparation type exercises to get ready to do an exercise. We usually need these things because we haven't done anything regarding that movement for so long. So yeah, if you haven't done anything as far as handstand work for the past 4 or 5 days, then it's going to take several sets to just kind of reorient yourself to getting inverted against gravity and opening up your shoulders and all these other sorts of things. But when I was more frequent, I found everything stayed mobile. Everything stayed activated to the most part. Everything was ready to go on a day-to-day basis because it never regressed, got stiff or tight or anything like that from several days of neglect. That higher frequency meant that I was just pretty much good to go on a more frequent basis with each set with almost no preparation, which was very much a welcome change. I wasn't overtraining or anything like that because ultimately, again, remember, you don't need to recover from exercise or training. You need to recover from stress and fatigue. So for the most part, the amount of volume and the amount of stress on my body and stuff was so low that I didn't need much recovery more than 24 hours to get beyond that. But I was still doing a couple of longer, more involved, higher volume workouts throughout the week, most notably on Sundays and stuff. And sometimes I'd be a little sore from that or a little bit more tired. And again, I would just use an adaptive strategy and do an easier exercise or regression where I wouldn't push myself as much the following day or even 2 days if warranted. And that didn't slow down my progress. It still kept me feeling like I was making progress as far as the mobility and the stability and getting used to the exercise. So I was able to work out harder and heavier sometimes, more frequently, and as long as I kept things adaptive, I was never at that point where I was feeling like, oh, this is just a slog and I'm just getting through it and I'm getting way overtrained. And I think if there was any sort of a negative to take away from this thing, was that there were certainly times where I was feeling like it was a forced thing, where I was forcing myself to do the handstand or do the bridges and stuff, and I wasn't doing it because I felt like I wanted to or my body was up for it or anything, but purely because I was following a dogmatic approach, which you know I've long been not a big fan of. So in those cases, I'd be like, okay, let me get this done, let me get it over with, a check mark for today, and then I would do it, and I'm like, well, that didn't feel like it did anything, it was not worthwhile, but I did it just to appease the program and stuff like that. And so I'm probably not going to continue with that. I'll probably, instead of doing it on a daily basis, probably hit it most days out of the week. But if there's a day moving forward where I'm like, I don't really feel like it, it's not really feeling in the wheelhouse right now, I'll skip a day and I won't be worse for it. So will you have a similar experience if you try a set a day on some exercise that you're struggling with? I don't know. It's too many variables and too many individualistic differences between you and me to really say it could be great, could be terrible, who knows. But if you want to give it a shot, go ahead and just pick an exercise, take a set to 75, 80% close to failure if you like, and listen to your body. Listen to the feedback that it's giving you. Learn from it, grow and improve it. And then if it doesn't feel like it's working for you, well, ditch it. And if you feel like it is, then adopt it and keep moving forward. Overall, I would say it was a great success, big time win, and that's why I'm going to keep going on it, because ultimately, you know, people will sometimes go on these diets or these workout programs like, it was awesome, it was great, it worked great, and now I'm going to stop. It's like, well, if it's so great, then why did you ever stop? And I certainly plan to continue doing this. Let me know if you have questions down below. Check out again that ebook that I mentioned on adaptive training that just came out on Kindle and the PDF store, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Till then, be fit and live free.